Welcome to the HorseFrog podcast. I'm Kamraun.
And I'm Billy. Welcome to the first HorseFrog production special episode, Batman versus Superman. We've been alluding to it for 6 months, and now it's finally here.
Billy and I are going to make our cases for why we love these characters, what they mean to us, and perhaps we can convince each other to move one way or the other in the process. We're going to present our topic in each category and allow for cross-examination before moving on to the next topic. Quick overview of how we're going to approach this. We're going to go into why we each like the characters. Then we're going to go into notable storylines, the top villains, and then movies. And some people may say that Superman has the deck stacked against him in this debate. I mean, how do you feel about that?
I don't know. Yes, I'll agree in a lot of categories, but in movies, I don't know. I have a lot of love of Superman movies. But there's a lot of bad Superman movies. Same thing for Batman movies. There's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of bad ones.
That's true. Yeah, I only included the ones I like. So
that's what I did. I went from that direction that we were going to go from what we thought and what we liked. So I listed them in the not necessarily the order I love them, but I like them all, and I elaborate as we build on that. So okay,
cool. This should be interesting. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're really excited. Kamraun and I usually share a document between us. We have a show format in which which a lot of what we say is extemporaneous, but we have a format that we follow. So for us, this is completely new. We've kept all of our stuff separate, and so we don't know what's coming either. So we're excited too.
For those of you that were unaware, I don't memorize every word in a script for a boys episode every week. just so I'm not superhuman, okay? So I am reading that from document.
Yes,
we do add quite a bit to it, but it gives us an outline, and then we have our tangents. The tangents are not planned.
The tangents are completely tangent. Yeah, the tangents happen. That's the magic, folks.
Yeah, that's where the nergentia.
Yes, lives. That is for the nergentia. That's right.
Yeah. All right, you want to go first, or should I go first?
You go first. Why do you like Batman, and what makes him a good hero?
Okay, to me, Batman symbolizes what a human is capable of achieving given enough drive and commitment. Okay. Now, sure, he has access to technology no one else has due to his inheritance, right?
Yes.
This doesn't take away from his work ethic and commitment to his cause.
And I agree. Now, we've spoken at length, and I brought up the role-playing game I used to play, the DC RPG. As statistically speaking, there is no human like Batman. Batman has the top stats in all categories, physical, mental, and in spiritual warfare as well. He is trained. And so I agree. He is, it's not just the gear. Batman is the pack. There is the package. He's, he knows what he knows what he does. I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So just kind of continuing on why I like him. He survived the trauma of his youth and decided to do something about the source of crime since no one else was stepping up to the plate. With all the corruption in Gotham, I don't really see that he had an alternative.
That's true.
I guess he could have done nothing.
Well, it's kind of funny. You spin that so positively. I always look at it like it's like, gee whiz. It's like it's a lot of PTSD much. It's, it's like, can't we get past the murder of your folks? I didn't think about it in the more optimistic, the fact that nobody else steps up. That's true. Gotham is a cesspit that no one wants to try and control.
Right.
And the cops are scared to try and control. So I do admire him for that as well.
Or they're corrupt, right?
Or they're corrupt, yeah. And the ones that aren't corrupt are scared of the ones that are
corrupt. Yeah, when there's a certain amount of corruption that outweighs, it's like Gordon, right? He had to kind of fight an uphill battle being surrounded by a bunch of, that's Commissioner Gordon for those that are relatively unfamiliar. Yeah. Now, through the use of his formidable intellect, he's able to survive in a world where he is vastly outclassed from a power level perspective. And he approaches the situation like a chess grandmaster. He sees everything kind of 15 steps ahead. He has plans on top of plans on top of plans to handle every contingency.
And I agree. Like I say, and I think this is where folks may become confused in the fact that this Batman-Superman debate, I am not a hater of Batman. I like Batman. But I like Superman better. And I think that you're kind of in the same way. I don't think you hate Superman necessarily. I just think that you like Batman better because you like the humans. I think that you're more down with the gritty human level of superheroes. Is that a fair
That's
assessment?
accurate. I mean, this is probably sounding a lot like our Marvel conversation, where I was talking about my lack of interest in kind of the cosmic affairs,
Yeah,
and I prefer the more grounded, closer to our level of
I get
reality
that.
type of storylines.
And I get that. And I totally get that. And I agree, Batman and that in that universe, Batman is, he's fantastic, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And and, uh, and and as I've always said, he's far better written. Has always
Billy,
been.
you got to make the case before you admit all the.
I've never.
Yeah, you're already set yourself up. You got.
No, so I'm not. My love of Superman comes from different things, from different aspects, and we'll get to that.
Okay.
It's like so
Okay.
that, like I said, I don't have my cross examination here turns into also a love fest of Batman because I do love Batman. I'm just,
Mm-hmm.
I am just personally my thing with Batman is I am just sick to death of seeing the. We all know that the murder of his parents have driven him to this. I no longer need to see this referenced in any movies. I tire
It's just
of
because
this.
they keep rebooting it. That's
I
all
know
it
it.
is.
And
Yeah.
this is one of the reasons I enjoyed the Batman Superman so much. They told that through the credit sequence and not in a way that we needed to really see. And I enjoyed that. I was like, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
skipping to the chase. We all understand that, Bruce Wayne has been traumatized.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's so, yes, but so yeah, I don't have much on the cross examination point other than I get why you like him because you like the more
Okay.
grounded, and I have some grounded stuff I like. But in the Marvel universe, I like the Daredevil is my grounded guy.
Mm-hmm.
But here, I like Batman, but it's I guess for Superman, I mean, I guess it's just because I like the big power levels. That's
Okay. Let me make one more point about why I like
okay.
Batman, and then I do have a question for you,
Okay.
a direct quote that I'm going to
Okay.
ask you.
Uh-oh.
So the fact that Batman has a line that he will not cross, he will
Yes.
not murder somebody, is commendable, because
Yes.
it would be so much easier if he just killed all of these people and
Yes.
just got it over with, right?
And
But
I agree.
he does the right thing,
Yes.
and he takes them to Arkham Asylum, or he turns them into the police, or he does what he can outside of taking them out entirely.
Yeah, he's very compassionate. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
the Batman, as harsh as he is a very compassionate person because of the fact he wants them. I think he wants them to be cured. In all honesty, I think maybe he does have a hold out hope that humanity might be good.
Mm. Okay, so the question I have for you, I'm gonna quote
Okay.
you here, and
Oh,
I would
okay.
like a little bit more context.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'm scared now, but
Batman is bad man. He is the problem with Gotham. Don't you know it? All right. So after you just told me how much you like Batman, help me
oh,
understand what that statement means. Are you just trying to get at me, or are you just like,
no. It still kind of means what it means to me.
okay,
Bruce Wayne is mentally ill and needs help. Being the Batman is not helping him. As a matter of fact, I would suggest that our shared love of the quote about Superman actually is almost the reverse. And I don't think that Bruce Wayne exists anymore. I think there is only the Batman.
yeah,
And so I think so with Bruce Wayne technically kind of being dead and there only being the Batman, I think that he presents it's just like in the Marvel's universe, it's like a bigger power. People see this as a challenge,
so it's a
and
lodestone.
it draws people to him and to his city. First off, people are drawn to Gotham because it's a lawless town, even with the police.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, so why it's still populated, I don't understand. But if it's that bad, but apparently it's people stay there, and uh, but but it draws people that want to do this stuff anyhow, to be villains and to try and take charge because Batman keeps creating vacuums by taking out who's in charge. So you keep having a call. You keep having a cause and effect, and it keeps just call. It's a circular thing. It's like if Batman had some good psychiatric help, maybe he would hang up the cowl and be Bruce Wayne again and be a happy man.
Okay, so I could see that case. So you're making the Saddam Hussein argument, where we take him out, the
Right.
United States, and then the power vacuum that's left behind leaves room for ISIS to come in.
Right. Right.
Okay, I could see
So
that.
yeah,
That
it's
makes
kind of
sense.
a
Okay.
like I say, it's a lot of it is enabled by the Gotham infrastructure already in place of being such a corrupt place, and the only
Mhm.
person willing to stand up to the law or stand up for the law is Batman, and Batman terrifies everyone, including the supes. So they let Batman have Gotham. It's like,
Mhm.
instead of letting
Yeah.
Superman, like, I mean, Metropolis doesn't have that kind of problem because they got Superman there. It's like, yeah, no matter how bad things get, it's like you at least have that fellow there. It's like if some of these guys kind of, but I don't think Superman hangs out in Gotham because it's like he doesn't want to step on Bruce's toes.
Mm.
You know, Bruce has got a. I believe Bruce has a plan, but it's like, but there's always plans going on from the other side.
Yeah.
Maybe Bruce has a greater good in mind. But to me, that would only be the destruction of Gotham City and Arkham Asylum, which
I want to go back to the point that you made about Bruce Wayne not existing anymore, that he
Mhm.
has a large psychological problem and
Yes,
he needs to get help. Some
yes,
of the greatest athletes of all time or high achievers had
mhm.
serious psychological issues
Oh
that
yeah.
caused them to be what they were.
Yes. Well,
You
you
know, so
understand. I am aware of there are many studies that talk about very driven and successful people in life. A lot of these super achievers all have kind of some psychopathic traits to them,
mhm, right,
and that's not an uncommon thing. In all honesty, I mean, I think in some of these super driven folks to have that kind of weirdness to them.
right.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off on that. But the question though was,
The heights that we can achieve,
uh
they're largely governed by the desire to get there, right? And I
yes,
don't see most people being able to achieve anything like what he achieved without having some type of driving force like what he has.
I
Yeah.
agree.
So he wouldn't be what he is without that.
That's very true. But there's people that have gone through those kind of situations and have come out just as strong and haven't been tempted to adopt a life of being a crime fighter either.
Well, okay, we're not advocating for vigilantism, right? I mean,
Right.
this is all
Well, I mean,
hypothetical, but like,
even in
give
that
me an
universe, I'm
give me an
assuming that
example of
statistics,
somebody who's achieved what he has without having some type of like. Okay, so who are you thinking of in that case
like
that
in
is
comic book
mentally
world,
sound?
or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or even in reality,
oh,
somebody that's like kind of mentally sound that you see as like a ultra
oh,
high
well,
achiever.
I don't know that they're necessarily mentally sound because some of the people that are the highest achievers, I agree, like Elon Musk.
Hmm.
Elon Musk has some issues. He's
Yeah.
explained, you know. So it's like again, I understand that these are things that drive, and I think that these people arise as we need them too. Sometimes, you know, I'm a
Hmm.
believer that that this happens because we need these pushes in certain places. Because there are
Yeah.
certain my favorite, I think, famous kind of psychopath that was not listed as such, and that was a great general was Patton.
Hmm.
And I love that guy, but he's a nut job, dude.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's like, being a Christian, I think that was just like, he died real shortly, like within weeks after the war ended. He's killed in
Because
that
he
accident.
needed it. Oh, it was an
Yes,
accident.
yeah, it was an accident.
Okay.
An
Okay.
ox cart broke loose and crushed him, and then he lived for some hours, maybe a day or two, but he died from his injuries of being
Hmm.
crushed by this ox cart. But this is after the war's over, and I'm talking like within like a short time after the war's over. And I always felt like it's like he was just such a wild card. It's like we needed him for the war, and it's like, well, the Lord took him out. It's like, okay, those kind of guys could cause problems
Hmm.
because he wanted to go to Russia,
Yeah.
which might would have solved some problems, but apparently that was just how I just always think it's just so strange how he was killed like that.
Hmm. Yeah.
But he was nutty, but I loved him.
Okay, but so that's a high achiever that was nutty.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
mentioned that there's examples of other ones that are well adjusted. Now, so
Well,
who?
I think, well, there's a guy the only person I can think of offhand is a climber. Do you know that Alex Honnold?
Oh
He
yeah,
did
yeah.
that
Okay,
the movie Solo. You watched the
yeah.
movie Solo with him? I watched
Hmm.
that with my folks. That's my second time to watch that movie. That guy's got some issues.
He has Asperger's.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm kind of getting at. Is but that's still, but you can, but that drives him. That's kind of one of those things that I think drives certain people. That's he's semi well adjusted. I
Mm.
mean, is that kind of what you're driving at? I mean, I can't think of any other people other than the famous ones. I mean, I don't know anybody
Okay.
offhand
Was there a
I
comic
can.
book character that you had in mind?
Not necessarily. I'm just assuming that statistically speaking, if there's a world like ours in the comics, that there's billionaires and millionaires that are high achievers that are okay. They're not all Lex Luthor and they're not all Bruce Wayne,
Okay.
you know, or Oliver Queen, the Green Arrow, you know.
All right. Well, I guess that concludes my "Why do I like Batman"
Why
segment.
do you
Do you
like
have any
him?
other
Right?
questions for me, or?
No, I mean, it's like I get it. I mean, I do get it because and I'm sorry if I feel that Batman is the problem, but again, it's like I just think I like that Batman scares the other soups into staying out of his turf too, even when things get really bad. I mean, you don't see them all just kind of hanging out in Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
Even when the lights go out and like it gets really weird, it's like it's basically Batman's job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So, why do you like Superman?
I I think for me it's just because he's just a good guy. I mean, I love the bright and shininess, and I too like you don't even though he's in that cosmic power league. I don't like a lot of the cosmic power stories because they do get a little too out of hand. But when he's written down to earth, like there's some great stuff where he's just real down to earth. I have reference here to a issue like I love Hitman comic. This not the 47 from the video game, but this is Hitman from a Garth Ennis, and this is DC. And so this is Tommy Monahan, the Hitman, is in Gotham City, and Superman is like on this rooftop, kind of bummed out over an incident that happened in space. Somebody died. He couldn't save everybody, and Tommy's kind of like is the guy that picks him up by his bootstraps and like says, "Hey, man, the whole world, we all look up to you, man. It's And he's real appreciative, and he makes Superman feels better. But then he turns around as Superman leaves and gets out of earshot. It's like he's he's a hitman. He kills a guy, but he made the Man of Steel
Mm-hmm.
feel good. It's like so I love that Superman is just kind of down to earth. It's like he'll save you from the cosmic threat, but he'll also save the guy on the street. And Superman will talk the same way to everybody. He's so I think that's why I kind of like him. He's a very mythological character for sure. I was going to bring up the quote, but I don't know if I wanted you or if you wanted to bring it up first from the Kill Bill because I do
No,
like
you do
that,
it.
and because I'll just paraphrase it, or do you want me to quote the whole thing?
No, you can say however you want. That's fine.
Okay. Well, Kill Bill and Volume 2, Bill explains to the Uma Thurman's character of his love of comic books, and I'm very fond of this. And this is not a positive thing on Clark Kent / Bruce or Superman, but I love it. This is from Bill. This is Bill's speech. As you know, I'm quite keen on comic books, especially the ones about superheroes. I find the whole mythology surrounding superheroes fascinating. Take my favorite superhero, Superman. It's not a great comic book, not particularly well drawn, but the mythology. The mythology is not only great, it's unique. Now, a staple of the superhero mythology is that it's the superheroes, that there's always the alter ego. Batman is Bruce Wayne. Spider Man is actually Peter Parker. When that character wakes up in the morning, he's Peter Parker. He has put on the costume and to be Spider Man. And in that characteristic, Superman stands alone. Superman didn't become Superman, he was born Superman. When Superman wakes up in the morning, he's Superman. His alter ego is Clark Kent. His outfit with the big red S, that's the blanket that he was wrapped in as a baby when the Kents found him. And those are his clothes. What the Kents wear, the glasses, the business suit, that's the costume. That's the costume Superman wears to blend in with us. Clark Kent is how Superman views us. And what are the characteristics of Clark Kent? He's weak, he's unsure of himself, and he's a coward. Clark Kent is Superman's critique on the whole human race. Now, aside, real quick, how great is Quentin Tarantino?
You can't replace that dialogue.
That's one of my favorite speeches of all time from Tarantino.
Yes, I was going to reference it too. So,
but that doesn't turn me off about it. That's what, because Superman tries so hard, even as Superman, he's trying to identify with the people. I feel
no, that's not how I read it. Like,
I,
it's the
he's
wrong message.
I understand that here he's critiquing us as weak and cowardly, but I don't know if he necessarily is, or if he's paying us a tribute and trying to be one of us.
I don't like it. So, as a hero, he's born a god. He
Yes.
is a god. Okay, all he has to do is try not to be bad.
Yes.
That's it. It's just like,
And he does.
okay, that's fine, but there's no improvement. Like, there's no, people need to get better. Like, growth is part of
Oh no,
life.
I agree. I agree. Now, this is where I agree so much on Superman. I agree that because it's that quote covers it all. He's not well written. But there are there are exemptions to that in which they are well written. They blow your mind.
You're going to list some of those?
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm curious to hear about those.
I will get to when we talk about storylines.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a couple that are stand out, and one of them I know you like.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but it's always dependent on who handles it.
That's true.
You know,
Yeah.
Because what happened, like this is the reason I became such a big DC fan was that when I was 20 and younger and mid late 20s, they were writing better stuff. They took their adult line writers and merged them over into their mainstream writing. And so their mainstream writing became real intellectual and really sharp, and not just like it was difficult and good reading.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just a bunch of guys in tights beating the snot out of each other, and it meant something. And now Marvel, they did make good in the early 2000s, about the time I quit reading. But it was just because it's an expensive habit, and I was getting married.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a truly expensive habit.
Mm-hmm.
I wish comic book reading was cheap. I would be more into it. I mean, I've kind of been on a resurgence now because I have the money, but I've kind of hit, but for the most part, like I said, he was always poorly written until there's some Grant Morrison and Alan Moore stuff that I've referenced. Those guys that that write some very intelligent and very good stuff.
Yeah.
That does challenge our heroes. I mean, things that actually, people that put some thought into instead of strolling around for the past 70 years like he did. Superman has been challenged lately by real challenges by good writers. But there's also been a bunch of dreck out there, because it's mostly dreck over. If you're going to add it percentage wise, he existed for 60 years as terrible writing. Just kind of Superman wins the day. It's just kind of just your typical trash writing of the 60s, 70s, and the Bronze Age.
What's interesting is he's been around almost as long as Batman.
Yes.
And Batman has his fair share of trash too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it just seems like the Batman stable is just so much more full.
It is. It's Superman. And like I said, it's even back then. It's like they always poured more into Batman, because he is the detective of Detective Comics, which is DC. That's what DC stands for, is Detective Comics. So he is the detective. We can't shirk Batman. We can give short shrift to everyone else, but Batman is why we exist, as he's the cornerstone of that universe, and I mean of that comic universe. So it's so much so that it's in the name.
So I wanted to kind of go back to what we were talking about, like Superman being born a god.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that bothers me about this is we don't need that, because I'm going to sound like Lex Luthor here, and I tend to agree with Lex Luthor on this one. And I can go there too. I also shave my head, so yeah, maybe I'm auditioning for the next Lex Luthor part. But humanity does not need that around us, because
I agree.
Superman's a lodestone. This is
I agree.
Now here's my little. Don't look at Batman, because he's also a lodestone for crime, right? But Superman's power level is the issue.
It's a planetary lodestone.
Exactly.
And I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
If it can destroy the whole planet, that's a problem. We don't need that type of a magnet around us.
This is why I love Man of Steel. The movie Man of Steel covers my fear. It's closer to Alan Moore's Miracle Man comic book, which is the idea of Shazam, but seen from wow, we should. This isn't fun. This isn't neat. I mean, Man of Steel, you have 13 Kryptonians at the most, and I don't know how many thousands of people are killed. But they do more damage to Metropolis than I think happened in the big invasion in New York City
in the Avengers.
On the Avengers, yes,
Mm-hmm.
They may have done way more damage, and that was less people. And that's a horrifying thought. But at least we have Superman on our side. But they did come there looking for him, though. I agree. They're both lodestones, and that's probably deliberate. I'm assuming. I mean, it's like, but again, it's always poorly handled. Now, again, folks, if I'm stepping on toes, I have not read a Superman comic since the death of Superman and the Doomsday stuff. I mean, that's how long ago it has been. That's 90s. I think it's 93, 94.
Kingdom Come is about all that's come out since then that was worth anything, right?
Yeah, and I have that listed in storylines that are significant storylines. And even though he's not a supreme player in it, it is a Superman storyline. His absence is why things are so bad, I think.
Yeah, let's save that for when we cover that.
Save that for them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, so my knowledge of comic books and Superman, this all is very dated, and it's more dated by today's movies, which are referencing older comic works now. Mm-hmm. I feel. I mean, very much so, especially with Batman versus Superman. That's two different stories. That's the Superman Doomsday story, and then that's the Batman The Dark Knight Rises or The Dark Knight Returns story from Frank Miller,
which I have listed.
Kind of blended together. Oh, that's a fantastic story, dude. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, you're talking to a man who I have 33 boxes of comic books, of which I'm guaranteeing you at least 1.5 of those, if not 2 of those, is completely Batman. I'm a particular fan of. There's a storyline called Tales of the Dark Knight, which would be anywhere from a one shot to a full year's story long, written by different artists and writers. So you have completely, I don't know if it's still going or not, but I have like the first 100 issues, and it had a story of Venom, which is the stuff that made Bane. And Batman,
I have that listed. You're getting into all my stuff.
Well, I have all your stuff. I mean, it's like I have read it all, and I don't. Again, this is not a dislike of Batman. Batman has always been better written. More people want to write Batman. More of the great writers have grown up going, "Oh my goodness, I finally get to write Batman." But you would not have these things, like I said, because Alan Moore and some of these other people have written some of my Superman stuff. And I will get it when we get into storylines. I'll cover this. Let's move along.
Okay.
I think I've done about all I can as far as I don't know if I've swayed anyone with that. I mean, I love Superman from a purely I love power kind of, and I don't know if that's a good thing, but in comic books, I like a guy that can knock down a building.
Okay. I guess I like things that I could envision myself turning into.
I get that. I get that.
A more
I wanted to be
realistic.
I wanted to be the Hulk as a little boy because I grew up watching the Hulk television show. So I was like, oh, the Hulk, dude. I just need a spandex collection, and apparently I'm good to go.
Yeah. All right. Notable Batman storylines.
Okay.
The first one I'm going to list is A Death in the Family. This is considered one of the most important Batman stories for featuring the death of Batman's sidekick Robin at the hands of his arch enemy, the Joker.
Oh, I thought that was Killing Joke for some reason. Okay,
no, I'm gonna get into that because I'm also gonna list that one.
Okay.
Yeah, so Jason Todd is the second character to assume the Robin persona. He was introduced in 1983 to replace Dick Grayson, who was unavailable for use at the time. I'm not sure what that means.
Nightwing. Todd,
oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Todd became unpopular among readers after 1986 as writers began to characterize him as rebellious and impulsive. Editor Dennis O'Neil was considering having Todd revamped or written out of Batman when he recalled a 1982 Saturday Night Live sketch in which Eddie Murphy encouraged viewers to call the show if they wanted him to boil a lobster on air.
Oh, yeah.
Inspired to orchestrate a similar stunt, DC set up a 900-number voting system to allow fans to decide Todd's fate.
Now, real quick question. Is that one written by Moore? I think Killing Joke is. But is Death in the Family written by Alan Moore? I'll take a look while you're looking.
No. It was written by Starlin and Aparo. Starlin and Aparo.
Okay. Jim Starlin. Jim Starlin created the Infinity Gauntlet series.
Okay.
That's who Starlin is.
Okay.
So, and Thanos and all that stuff. So, yeah, Starlin's a great classic.
A death in the family begins when Batman relieves Todd of his crime-fighting duties. Todd travels to the Middle East to find his biological mother, but is kidnapped and tortured by the Joker. Batman number 427 ends with the Joker blowing Todd up in a warehouse. The writers Starlin and Aparo prepared 2 versions of the following issue. One that would be published if readers voted to have Todd survive, and another if he was to be killed. A narrow majority voted in favor of the latter, and Batman number 428 features Batman discovering Todd's lifeless body in the warehouse ruins. The storyline ends when Batman and Superman stop the Joker from killing the United Nations General Assembly. And this has one of the most iconic Batman shots where he's holding the broken body of Robin in his arms, and he's kind of just hunched over. Really, really good image there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of starting the list out.
Okay.
The next one I have listed is Arkham Asylum.
Yeah.
Now
another great one. Grant Morrison.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I'll have all these. You realize this.
You might not have one of them. Okay. I don't know if I list the storyline out, but I'll get into the character. Yeah, I don't think I have the storyline in here, but the character in particular. It's relatively recent.
Okay.
After the Joker assaults Gotham City Hall, he is caught by Batman and taken to Arkham Asylum, which temporarily houses many members of the Joker's gang, who were transferred after a fire at Blackgate Prison. Believing the Joker allowed himself to be captured, Batman accompanies him into the asylum. The Joker's plan is revealed as Harley Quinn takes control of the security and the Joker escapes into the facility, aided by a corrupt guard who kidnaps Commissioner Gordon. The Joker threatens to detonate bombs hidden around Gotham City if anyone tries to enter Arkham, forcing Batman to work alone. They made a video game out of this. Really good video game.
Oh, yeah, they have.
And it's really cool because he's trapped in there by himself, Batman.
Okay.
Basically, the prisoners have taken over the entire place.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. The next one I have listed is Hush. Have you heard of this one? It's relatively new.
Hush. Yeah, I've heard of it. But is that part of the Tales of the Dark Knight, or is that something different? No, that's different.
I think this is standalone.
I've never read it, but I've heard of it mentioned. I don't know why, but
I think it was early 2000s. I say relatively recent. The story depicts a mysterious stalker called Hush who seems intent on sabotaging Batman from afar, and it includes many guest appearances by Batman's villains, as well as various members of the Batman family and Batman's close ally, Superman. It also explores the romantic potential between Batman and Catwoman. I'm not going to read too much of the synopsis on this because it is a pretty twist-heavy storyline.
Okay.
But it is really cool. I recommend you either read it or look up a synopsis of it because it's really neat.
I've gone through a phase here. Like I said, now when I moved here, I had got a larger Kindle, which, a Fire device. So I started reading a bunch more comics and more graphic novels. And so I've read some newer, I have no idea how new it is, but it's the Winter Soldier because apparently they got rid of Captain America. Sharon was brainwashed, and she actually kills Captain America, and that's when Bucky assumes the mantle of Captain America. So I read some of that, and that's newer. I don't know how new it is, but I've dabbled in some stuff that's newer than 2015, and for me, that's really new. And, that's extremely new for me and comic book stuff. But some of the new stuff has been good. I've not been put off by any of it. It's actually encouraged me to want to read more. But I'm like, I got to stop. I'm going to spend too much money on these stupid graphic novels, even though they're digital. It's a ridiculous obsession.
Yeah. The next one I'm going to list might be a little suspect because it's not directly a Batman story, but Batman plays a huge role in the plot of it. It's the Tower of Babel. Are you familiar with this one?
Tower of Babel, that's also a JLA from Grant Morrison, right?
It is Justice League. It's used as the basis for Justice League Doom.
Okay. I see. It's what's funny. I don't think I've read Babel yet. I actually have collected this stuff and not read it. I have read the first several. No, I have read the first because I reference a JLA for one of my storylines here. Because
I'm worried about ruining it for you now. Because I was gonna.
I don't think you shouldn't ruin it. I think I have it. You can't ruin it. I've read it already and have forgotten it. Is I think what's happened. I'm pretty sure is what the case is.
Okay. I'm not going to go too far into the plot here because when we get into the movie section, I'm going to cover what happens in Justice League Doom. There are some kind of differences between the two and who's responsible for what happens as the bad guy.
I watched Doom. So is that the one is that something involving Apocalypse?
No.
And Darkseid? Maybe I didn't see Doom then. I'll watch it. I know it's on HBO.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Okay. Next one, The Killing Joke. You called it.
Yeah.
How could I not list this?
Well, it's Alan Moore. I know that one's Alan Moore for sure. Is that where he breaks Barbara's back?
Yeah.
Batwoman's?
Basically, the Joker kidnaps Barbara Gordon, who's Commissioner Gordon's daughter, and his goal is to drive Commissioner Gordon insane by torturing his daughter. So he kidnaps both of them. He locks Commissioner Gordon up in a kind of carny cage at a abandoned fairground or circus grounds or something.
Right.
And then he displays blown up images of his new daughter who's been paralyzed and tortured, trying to drive him insane. And ultimately, Commissioner Gordon does not break. He tells Batman to not harm Joker, just do the right thing and capture him, basically.
Right.
So Commissioner Gordon and Batman were able to stand to their values, I should say.
Yeah, okay. Right.
It's a iconic Batman storyline. It's also very controversial because of the treatment of Barbara Gordon. But then she becomes Oracle. She's in a wheelchair, and then she becomes a pretty important character after that. Yeah.
She runs the Justice. She kind of runs. She's in the Grant Morrison Justice League. She's their intelligence gathering service.
Basically, that's what Oracle is. Yeah, she's the man in the van, I guess you call it, or the voice, coming over the airwaves.
Guy in the chair.
The kid she plays that role.
Spider-Man. Yeah, the guy, the woman in the chair.
Yeah.
So let me ask a quick question. Do you read? Were you ever a big comic book reader, other than some things that kind of stoked general common interest in comics, like say Sandman or Kingdom Come, or are you only familiar just from getting into this, or do you have a top 5 DC or Marvel or anything like that?
I did not have. We were middle class growing up, but we lived in Southern California. It wasn't. It's expensive living there, right? So there wasn't a lot of disposable income to buy all this stuff. I only bought a couple comics growing up. I had like a Zorro comic. I don't know why I had that. Maybe somebody gave it to me. And then I still have these. And I have an X-Force comic. Nice. And that's about it. I've always really appreciated McFarlane's art. I always loved Venom and Carnage. Always. I mean, I was a child of the 90s. We've talked about this before, right? So that era of comics really was impactful to me.
So yeah, I get that. That's when I was reading big. Yeah.
I got the Marvel Encyclopedia. I read the whole thing. It has all the characters in it. So I did that. And then with the advent of the internet, I basically just went crazy reading on all the storylines and stuff.
Okay.
I've never really had the novels themselves or actually read the actual books, but like the stories as they're like, I'm interested in the story and the message, right? So that's I do prefer kind of a cinematic approach to things.
And I get that.
Okay.
See, for what happened to me as a kid is that my grandfather, my mom's daddy, I grew up and spent a lot of time with them. I was real fortunate, and my grandparents didn't live far apart. They only lived about 15 miles apart. So when they were friends with each other, but when I would get kind of handed off in the summer. I wanted to. I'd spend about a month away from home, 2 weeks at one, 2 weeks at another, and they kind of swapped me off. Anyhow, my mom's daddy, there was an old woman who had I swear it was an old condemned house. There was no floor. It was a wood floor. And it's an old bookstore. And he'd take me there every week. And for about $1, I'd walk out with about 20, 25 comics. And it was no order, no nothing, just a huge stack of comics that would get me through. And I just developed this unaffiliated random assortment of comics. And that kind of started me down that path of loving comics. And so I've had that monkey on my back since I was probably 12. Mm-hmm. But I didn't have a lot of money, so I didn't put anything into it until I was working. And like I said, 1920. So in the 90s and stuff, that's when comic books started becoming really crazy and good, is when I got into it. And the reason I ask is because I have because Superman is not even in my top 5. I mean, if we're in DC terms, I have it. Swamp Thing is number 1 by Alan Moore. Alan Morris, but that whole run, there's like 150, 170 issues. I can't remember. That whole run is magnificent. There's Doom Patrol, started by Grant Morrison. That is magnificent stuff. And that's actually been made into a television show, and they have kept faithful to the feeling of it, which is hard to describe. It's such a deviantly weird show. Then you have the Justice League by Grant Morrison. Preacher by Garth Ennis, and then The Flash or the Green Lantern. Those guys, it's a real toss-up on who is my favorite on those two. But I have hundreds of issues of both. Far outstripping any Superman, and it's the Flash, Green Lantern, and Batman are probably I have more issues of those three in my DC realm than I have of anything else.
Well, now we have a problem because you're supposed to be representing Superman, and you're admitting to not having a Superman.
Well, no, it's I love it's like I said, in the Justice League. The Justice League is basically Superman is running the Justice League, and you have that's when it becomes with Grant Morrison. That's the one that elevates Batman into this point of fear. Is that what Doom was? Is where it's Batman's weaknesses on all the superheroes are leaked.
Yes.
Okay, that's straight up good stuff. I mean, that's a fear. That's a great fear because Batman, because in the way that Grant Morrison writes this Justice League, these guys are terrified of Batman. And I agree.
Okay, let's get to that when we cover those storylines. Okay, so I got a couple more here, and then so
bring it.
The next, I think I only have two more.
Okay.
The next one is Nightfall, and I believe that's
the Broken Bat. I have that one. That's Drek.
And I believe this. It's Drek. Excuse me. Okay, so so if you're rating it as
that one, I rate that one and the Death of Superman. Those were both knee-jerk reactions. They did that one. They did I forgot who did what first and who pulled the trigger, but we did Superman death, Batman broken back, Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern, losing his mind, killing the entire Green Lantern force, killing the audience, consuming the power battery, and becoming an entity known as Parallax. And I kind of quit reading not too long after that because it starts going way off the rails on that.
That's what they based the Green Lantern villain on, right? Parallax, the Parallax force.
I think that was. I've seen it once. It's such a forgetful movie. I hate to say that, but it is.
Okay. So I disagree from the perspective that Bane is an interesting character.
He is an interesting character.
And the way he approached this situation, right? He gets all the villains out of Arkham Asylum that are Batman's enemies in order to wear Batman down. And then after Batman refuses help from anybody, and he tries to go it alone, he pushes too hard, and then he's worn down, and then Bane is stronger, and he's super intelligent, and he manages to break his back. I don't see why that's not a compelling storyline to you.
Here's the reason why, and I'll explain it from a consumer point of view, because I was going to ramble about this earlier, but this is the perfect reason for it right here. It's the crossover events. The crossover event is the bane of a comic book collector. Pardon my pun. That was not intended.
Oh, I could see that. Absolutely. So, trying to get one storyline, and it's like I've done research on this. Like I want to read this storyline. One of the characters I'm going to reference later, it falls in this. I'm like, I want to see this story from beginning to end. It's like, oh, you got to buy this series from episode 1 to 10, and then you got to get this other character's books from 32 to 75, and then you got to get these two from this one. Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
So between that one and between the Death of Superman and the Green Lantern stuff, I was worn down. I could care less at that point. It became apparent that it was they had gone from good writing to going for straight out money grabs.
Okay, so from anti-consumer standpoint,
these lost my readership because they were not very well written. They're not. There was they took something and drug it out as long as they possibly could to make the most possible money, and they could have told a shorter, more effective story. And that includes the Doomsday Superman death, the Batman broken back thing, and the Green Lantern thing. Those were waste, and apparently they're all undone now. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. We've apparently reset the universe again. No one knows anybody. It's all undone. You
talking about the new 52 or whatever?
We're even past that. It's apparently past the new 52.
Okay. Taking anti-consumer practices out of the equation, evaluating this as a standalone idea for a story.
The idea is fine. The execution poor on all accounts.
I'll give you that
because of the fact that it was because they were trying to drag it out. It's like it lost all emphasis. It lost all punch. I have every single stinking issue of it. So,
Okay.
so yeah, I'm speaking as a disgruntled reader, a disgruntled consumer, and this may have led to my disgruntlement of Batman.
Wow.
I mean,
I get
it's
it.
not,
I
it's not
sympathize.
Batman's
I
fault.
understand your
It's not
I
Batman's fault.
understand your perspective.
It's
I was
DC's
not
fault.
burned. I was not burned by them as a
Yeah,
company. So what I'm hearing from you is my feelings towards Star Wars right now.
I get it.
Okay. And it's a very similar trajectory.
It is.
So I understand where you're coming from. So I'm not going to take that away from you. I could see how you could get there. To me, it's a compelling story. I understand why you feel the way you do.
Yeah, and I want it. That's my problem. Is I want it to be a compelling story.
Mm-hmm.
The more compelling
Well,
story is
Christopher
Venom.
Nolan did it justice, I think.
And now, as much as I hate that movie, I will never hate the fact that it's not a terrible Christopher Nolan movie. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's the start of Christopher Nolan's stupid dynamic sound, which
Okay,
makes
agreed. Agreed.
Because I don't know if you're aware of this complaint, but the movie Tenet, they said the people in the audience in the theaters couldn't even understand it.
Yeah,
I mean, they couldn't understand the dialogue.
I had subtitles on at home.
I had
so,
that. I had my television. It cranks to 100. It's one of these.
Mm-hmm.
It's a QLED Samsung. I had the sound bar jacked all the way up. You couldn't hear it.
Yeah.
And me and my friend had to put the subtitles on this to understand what was being said.
Yeah.
And you got to turn it down during the explosions.
Again, I agree. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Before we get too far off topic,
Okay.
We could rant all day. All right. The final one is The Dark Knight Returns, which also was mixed into The Dark Knight Rises, the Christopher Nolan movie. It was a combination of the two.
One.
It is my number one. I'm going from lowest to the best.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm so sorry.
It is my number one.
Agreed. It's the greatest Batman.
It's funny because the most like the one right before this was the one that you hate the most.
Well, what's funny is because The Dark Knight Returns, that got me reading comics as an adult.
Yeah.
It was that first, and then Alan Moore's Watchmen next. And then I was like, oh my word, what's going on in comic books?
Yeah. All right. So quick synopsis of this. The Dark Knight Returns is set in a dystopian version of Gotham City in 1986. Bruce Wayne is aged 55. He's given up the mantle of Batman after the death of Jason Todd 10 years prior. That's the storyline that we referenced at the beginning of this. The death in the family.
Good storyline. Yeah.
Crime is running rampant throughout the city, and a gang calling themselves the Mutants has begun terrorizing the people of Gotham. After watching news reports about the Mutants' crimes, Wayne decides to return to his role as a vigilante. On his first night as Batman, he stops multiple assaults, including one on two young girls, Carrie Kelly and her friend Michelle. Carrie Kelly kind of takes up the mantle of Robin throughout this story. And then...
I need to reread that one. Dadgummit, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a touching one.
So Superman is at the White House with President Ronald Reagan. They discuss the events in Gotham, and President Ronald Reagan suggests to Superman that Batman needs to be arrested. So Superman now gets involved. I'm really kind of glossing over a lot of stuff here because it's a complex storyline. But basically, at the end, Batman stages his death, and Superman his own death, and then Superman is at the funeral, and then he hears Batman's heartbeat.
Yeah,
because he's got his super hearing. And he lets Batman go, and then Batman goes off, and he has the new Robin, and I think the Green Arrow's in this as well, Oliver Queen.
Yeah, I think so.
They go prepare their war on crime. So really, really good story.
Really good. I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. That's a fantastic story.
Yeah. So I've taken up quite a bit of time on my storylines.
Oh, that's good.
So Billy, tell me about your top Superman storylines.
Some about my top favorite Supermans. I'm on a list of just things that I really know. I did look up some stuff, and it sparked some memories for me. Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
I don't think I necessarily have these in a specific order. Kingdom Come is a fantastic story, but I think if I'm not, isn't Superman mostly vacant from that one or absent from that until I think he's playing farmer for a while, and then he finally realizes who he is or something and comes to save the day with him, I think. And the world is going to
Their Justice League is basically retired, with the exception of Batman, who turned Gotham into like a robotic police force, running around. It's basically like a dystopian future you don't want to live in, pretty much.
Right,
and he's got like he's so broken. He's like in an exos. Okay, so enough about Batman.
No.
Diana and Superman, they're just retired. Superman's pulling this massive piece of iron around as a plow, and
yes,
yeah, and then, well, I mean, do you want me to kind of keep going, or?
Yeah. Oh, no, but I was going to say but that's just kind of one of my. I mean, I don't really remember these are, and like I say, I'm just kind of listing the ones that but I love the one that needs to be listed as my number one. I'll do that. I'll tell my, because I'm only going to list 3 of them. More, I'm doing 4 in total. I'll list the last is the best. The Doomsday episode, yeah, it was a huge meh for me. I mean,
this is the death of Superman.
Yeah, the death of the Superman. Okay. Now I did enjoy the movie because but it was just it was a comic book. It was just, again, it was these things. What should have been good comic writing was reduced to people standing in line buying the Death of Superman comic, assuming it was going to be worth a fortune, and they were paying for their children's education with that comic book. I'm kidding you not, Kamraun. That was the mindset.
It was like the Beanie Babies thing.
You can buy. I mean, I have an open and an unopened one. I have a black bag with all the memorabilia in it. But I think it's only worth $20.
Yeah, probably. They probably made so many of them. Yeah.
It's worthless. Mm-hmm. Then I love the first Justice League by Grant Morrison's story arc. This is the White Martian story arc. And the Justice League is made to look incompetent by these new superheroes arrive on the scene. We're not sure where they're from. They claim to be aliens, and they're going to help usher in a new utopian era on Earth. And they can physically defeat the Justice League for the most part. Superman and Batman, of course, kind of ride to save the day because it's Justice League, baby. It's really, really good. The Grant Morrison stuff is amazing. It's amazing Justice League stuff. But to me, the best Alan Moore storyline called, it's one issue. It's called For the Man Who Has Everything. The wonderful thing about Alan Moore writing, you don't mind spending money on certain writers because you get your money out of Alan Moore. You get your money out of reading, let's say, a Todd McFarlane. When you read Spawn, I mean, these are not easy reads. You buy an issue of Spawn, it's a 45-minute to an hour read. Most comic books are done in 10 minutes. This is one of those, it takes you an hour to read this one. And this is, they're just playing with Superman's mind. A supervillain has this thing on his chest that is basically has him in a mind trap where he thinks he's just a normal man, a normal Kryptonian on Krypton, just living his life, just doing, and the only way to defeat Superman by this villain's is just, if we screw with his mind, we can take him out of the game, because physically I'm not going to be able to beat him in the long run. Really good storyline.
Okay.
And that's my 4 really Superman storylines. I think more, there's going to be some more memorable stuff that's going to.
Did you list 4?
I just listed 4. Yeah, the Kingdom Come, the Alan Moore one, the Justice League one, and the Doomsday one.
Oh, okay.
And that's all. Yeah, okay. Like I said, and folks, I know I do not do myself any favor by saying this. I mean, I love Superman. I can't explain my love of Superman. It may tie into the fact that it's my grandfather buying me a lot of comics, and you're never afraid to buy your grandson Superman comics. They're good, clean writing. And I learned about the multiverse in the early 70s before they ever started coining the idea of the multiverse. So I'm really thankful for that. So it may be tied to a more emotional bond to my grandfather than anything, because I think he likes Superman too. So that may be part of it.
Okay. All right. So I don't really have many questions about those stories. Oh. I'm unfamiliar with a couple of them. Okay. But yeah, Kingdom Come is a good story. It's not primarily a Superman story.
No, but it's a good story.
It is a good story though. Yeah. All right, so moving on to top villains, and I mean, again,
boy, Batman's got them. He's got them.
The deck is stacked here.
Yeah, it is.
I have to pare it down. So I'm gonna say this is in my opinion.
I did top 5. I did a top 5.
Okay.
If that helped.
I'm going to go a little bit over because I could
fine.
go for quite a while. I mean, there's hundreds of villains. He's been around forever. Okay. So this is kind of an honorable mention because this is the main villain of that movie that we were talking about earlier, the Doom movie, Vandal Savage. He's a it sounds so dumb too. He's a Cro-Magnon warrior that was exposed to a meteorite that gave him immortality and who has influenced history, having been a pharaoh in Egypt and a participant in the murder of Julius Caesar.
Yeah, I love Vandal
He also apparently played as Jack the Ripper at one point.
Oh, nice.
I mean, like, what a weird series of things that he's been involved in.
Yeah.
He is the enemy of the Justice League, the Justice Society, the Immortal Man, the Resurrection Man, Hawkman, Alan Scott, Jay Garrick, Pandora, Superman, and Batman, with occasional special interest in the Wayne family. And the only reason...
that sounds more like Justice Society-related hatred. Like,
yeah, he is.
It's another, like an alternate... Justice Society is not Earth 1, which is... there was a multiverse before they wiped it out in Crisis and then decided it'd be a wise idea to bring the multiverse back.
Mm-hmm. But and that was the New 52, right?
I think
when they brought it all back in.
I think so, but then I think they're really upset with that. I was reading that's a debacle, and but it doesn't matter. I can't read comics
they messed
anymore.
up. Yeah,
they screwed up.
Yeah, and again, the only reason I have him on here is because of his role in the Justice League Doom movie.
Yeah,
so that's kind of an honorable mention. Yeah,
he is an enemy of all good heroes at some point or another. I have him crossing paths with the Flash on the television show. That was not a bad television show. It's not a great television show, but it's entertaining and fairly clean family stuff. And he was a good villain on that.
He has kind of a X-Men Apocalypse feel, like a vibe to him, doesn't he? He's been around forever.
Yeah, I like those. I like when they explain away, famous people in history as being these, that they're actually these superhumans or something like that. I always enjoy that. Mm-hmm. Very much.
All right, the next one I have on here is Scarecrow.
Okay.
Professor Jonathan Crane was an outcast in childhood due to constant bullying until he grew up to face his fears as a psychologist and biochemist specializing in fear. Kicked out of a university for his unorthodox teaching methods, he now dresses symbolically as a scarecrow and employs a toxin that causes its victims to hallucinate what they fear the most, which is important in Batman, who is such a fear-centric hero.
Hey, dude, Batman Begins is a fantastic movie. I was already sick of Batman movies, but Christopher Nolan made me love him again.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I mean, the last couple we had before that were trash.
Yeah.
George Clooney and Val Kilmer,
I've never seen that one.
They're tied to those movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey.
I quit like after the ones where Michael Keaton was no longer. I didn't see any of the one past Michael Keaton.
Yeah. All right. The next one I have, these are probably relatively newer ones. The next two.
Okay.
Barbatos, the mysterious bat devil that haunted Gotham across time, fought Vandal Savage in the Stone Age and corrupted or possessed a man that would become Simon Hurt, later revealed to be the Hyper Adapter, a sentient weapon from Apocalypse, unleashed by Darkseid to travel across time and torment Batman. How's that for a storyline?
Dude, speaking of Apocalypse, I've got something with Lex in Apocalypse that I found out about later. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Alternately, he's an ancient god monster from the dark multiverse. So I'm not going to get into that too much.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been hearing about this dark multiverse lately.
There's a reason that I brought Barbatos up, and that's because of the Batman Who Laughs. Are you familiar with this character?
Just by name only.
Okay. The art is incredible.
Is he the Joker?
It's a version of Bruce Wayne from Earth 22 of the Dark Multiverse. This version of Batman was driven insane by Joker venom, murdered the Joker, and then the rest of the Bat family. He currently serves as a leader of the Dark Knights and a lieutenant to Barbatos. So that's the only reason I mentioned Barbatos. The character design for this, it is Batman with the most incredible savage smile that you can, with sharp teeth, and he wears like this iron choker that around his eyes that has these like spikes on it. It looks like something that you would have seen in one of the flashes in what's that Event Horizon movie. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the fact that it's a Batman from an alternate universe it's Batman with his level of intellect, his level of drive, driven insane by Joker venom.
Yeah.
Think about that as a villain, right?
That's horrific. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first time I saw this character, I haven't read the stories, but the first time I saw this character, I was like immediately taken with it because it was just such a cool character design.
Yeah,
it's one of those
I like
ones
that.
that doesn't leave your mind. So
yeah,
I thought I'd bring that in here. I have Hush, who is Dr. Thomas Elliot. He's a brilliant surgeon. He targets both Bruce Wayne, who is his childhood friend, and Batman because he figures out that they're the same.
Okay.
And he has a grudge against him for personal reasons.
Okay.
Then I have Ra's al Ghul,
yeah,
who is most notable as the leader of the League of Assassins. Ra's al Ghul's name in Arabic translates to head of the ghoul. And oddly enough, he is the grandfather to Bruce Wayne's son, Damian Wayne.
Yeah.
So
I do know that. I did know that.
I have Bane on here.
Okay. I like Bane. He's a great villain.
Yep. He's known for his incredible intellect and his immense strength, which comes from the super steroid called Venom. And then, of course,
I could never think about his South Park. You know that. Oh, Mr. UPS Man. Happy life is a happy life, Mr. UPS
Man. Yeah. And then, of course, the Joker.
Yes.
Got to have the Joker on here.
Got to have the Joker.
Yeah. I did cull the list down quite a bit. I didn't consider Catwoman as a villain because she's a love interest now. Yeah.
The one that I always liked that I think woefully underused sometimes that could have been more horrific. And they have used him in a horror since before, but Clayface.
Yeah. He plays a role in the Hush storyline.
Okay. Interesting. If written properly, I think he could be a horrifying villain. He is.
What about Solomon Grundy?
Solomon Grundy is really an unusual one in the fact that he's, when you look at him in a statistic point of view, it's like he's almost an elemental. He's like a toxin.
Kind of like Swamp Thing?
Yes, very much. Possessing similar characteristics of the Swamp Thing, but he's arisen from like the opposite of it's like the gray. Okay. Instead of being the green, which is the Swamp Thing, he is like the gray. So he is a representative of that. So he is an unusual thing. And it's, Grundy is really uniquely, he is a force as opposed to a sentience. He's just a kind of a force of nature. Not sure what, but he's just kind of a force of nature, but he's interesting. I mean, I've seen, as a matter of fact, he almost kills the Swamp Thing when the Swamp Thing is early learning on who he is. And then this stuff with Alan Moore, really good stuff with Solomon Grundy.
So he's kind of been across a lot of storylines then. He's not specifically a Superman or a Batman.
Yes, he hangs. He's one of those that all of us we've been forced to deal with him. Because of the type of thing that he is, he causes a lot of destruction, but it's also not a wanton destruction. When they realize that, they just kind of try and relocate Grundy to where he will cause the least amount of problem. It seems to be the answer to Solomon Grundy is like, you're not really going to be able to stop him, but if we can just put him in a place where, he doesn't really hurt anything, he'll be fine until he wanders out of it again.
Right. Okay. So that's it for what I had. What are your top villains?
I guess his number one, of course, is going to be Lex Luthor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes Lex is cool. Sometimes he's not. I don't know what's going on anymore. When you mentioned Apocalypse, I saw that something happened here recently. I say recently, I got no idea, where he had become the new Darkseid and Superman rolled into one. I'm not sure how that worked, but Lex has always been, whether he has humanity's best interest at heart or his own, where he does act like he has humanity's best interest at heart because he wants there to be no superhumans, and that's not really true. He does want there to be superhumans. He wants to be the one that's superhuman, and everyone else will have to bow to him. I think is always kind of the true Lex Luthor.
I can see that.
Brainiac is one of another big one. Just real smart guy. I don't know a whole lot about Brainiac. I know more about Brainiac's of his like descendants. There's in the 30th century, one of my favorite comic strips growing up was a Legion of Superheroes, and Brainiac 5 is a descendant of his and is actually is smart. And he's not Brainiac 5, he's just Brainiac. But he's a smart guy, but he's a computer-minded individual. He's not he is a humanoid, but he's just known for super intellect. Now, the other one I've got is Bizarro, which is, the weird mirror image, the bad clone version of Superman. Have you ever seen this guy? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And the problem with Bizarro, again, is that you get a kind of a Frankenstein. The original introduction of Bizarro is a guy has a duplicating ray. It hits Superboy by accident, making this Bizarro version of Superboy. And Bizarro befriends a blind girl and loses all hope, and he realizes the girl did not shun or flee from him because she is blind. He just thought that she liked him and could see him. Superboy is eventually forced to, quote unquote, kill the less than perfect clone because he's not really alive. He's just a simulacrum of life. But in the explosion of the machine that kills him originally, the explosion restores Melissa's eyesight. Now that's old school Bizarro, but it's very Frankensteinish. But they keep bringing Bizarro back, and he's a problem because he means well, but his meaning well is, if Superman is here to save the day, he's there to ruin the day. He thinks that that's what he's supposed to do. He's just a simpleton. He's, and a very strong one. And he may actually physically outpower Superman because he has no restrictions. He has no limitations he places up on himself physically. So he might be physically stronger than him. And then we get Doomsday, of course, who killed him, which was a good idea, but not really well done. And I think my favorite, of course, is Darkseid. I think Darkseid is he's the enemy of everybody. At one point, I don't know if you know this about his eye beams, but do you know about the Omega beams? Do you know what they are?
I don't know anything about Darkseid.
Okay, Darkseid is just evil incarnate, basically, and he has these laser vision, but it's not really because he just doesn't like to get his hands dirty. Physically, he's about the same strength as Superman, but his Omega vision or his Omega beams, what it does is it's a laser attack, but it's also a time attack, so he can disintegrate you. And then he can either transport you or he can just keep you dead and reintegrate you at some future point to be his slave.
Oh.
And so in the future, in the 30th century, he has brought back Superman and Wonder Woman and some other new gods he has killed, apparently, because they would not exist as these negative versions if he hadn't killed them. And they unleash there's a group of Kryptonians there's a colony called Daxam, and they were formerly Kryptonians. And so he moves their planet into a yellow sun, and he has an army of Supermen to almost enslave the galaxy. And that was some better stuff, but that was more of Legion of Superheroes and some other crazy stuff that involved Darkseid because he's just so powerful. But they've changed so much about him.
He always struck me as a Thanos type character.
Very much so. I'm not sure who came. I think Darkseid would have come first, not much before, because I think that stuff's from the 60s. Jack Kirby in the 60s.
Okay.
Because Kirby, as you know, it was Kirby and Stan Lee that Kirby did all the great Spider-Man art from the 60s. He was there on the ground floor. But Kirby invented the new gods and the Darkseid stuff. So and Jim Starlin did Thanos, but I think Thanos would have come in the 70s, I believe. So I believe Darkseid predates him by a few years. And that's really all. That's really all I've got on the Superman villains. Okay. I see we're going to go into Batman movies. So you're going to list your favorite Batmans, we're going to list these just in any particular. I don't have I say that. I think I list them.
I've been going from weakest to strongest.
I think I'm going that way.
I finished with the favorite. Okay. The first one, actually, I don't know. It's kind of an honorable mention because it is a Justice League movie.
Okay.
And it's the Justice League Doom. Okay. That's what we've been mentioning a couple times. I'm going to go in depth into this. This left quite the impression on me. And the reason I think it's such an important story is because it shows the level of preparation that Batman goes through, even for his allies.
That's true.
Okay. So I'm gonna actually go into depth on this because there are gonna be spoilers here in case anybody's listening to this and they want to watch this. But I want to go into the specifics of his plans on how to deal with each of these Justice League heroes. So the overall storyline is the Justice League and Cyborg stop the Royal Flush Gang's attempted robbery of a diamond vault using complex technology that allows them to pass through solid objects. Meanwhile, Vandal Savage, that's the Cro-Magnon man that inhaled radioactive meteor dust and became a genius that lives forever.
I enjoyed this because they have quite a few of those animated movies I didn't realize, and I watched a bunch of them when I first got HBO Max.
This would make a great movie. Like if they had done this instead of the Justice League that they actually made, this would have been sick, dude. But I guess they had to establish the relationship of the Justice League before, like amongst the team members, before they could attempt something like this. But okay, so Vandal Savage, he plots to start a new civilization by exterminating 2/3 of the population, and it is revealed that he gave the technology to the gang for testing. Savage hires Mirror Master to hack into the Bat computer and steal contingency plans devised by Batman to incapacitate his League teammates lest they go rogue. Savage assembles Cheetah, Star Sapphire, Metallo, Bane, Mirror Master, and Malefak. Do you know a better way of saying that? Because this really jacks me up.
I don't even know how it's spelled, so...
it's MA''ALEFA''AK.
Okay. We'll just good job.
I hope I don't have to say that again. Oh, I see it again. Okay, well, here we go. The Savage offers each of them a large sum of money to simultaneously attack the League members using the plans, which he has altered to be lethal. So Batman's were simply to incapacitate. They've now been modified to kill. When the supervillains agree, Savage welcomes them to the Legion of Doom. As the Legion of Doom each do their part to take out the Justice League, Batman is informed by Alfred that the bodies of Thomas and Martha Wayne have been exhumed and are missing. At their graves, Bruce is ambushed by Bane, who beats him to near death before rendering him unconscious and burying him alive in his father's coffin. That's a great way to start out.
It is. Maybe I haven't seen this one. I guess I need to go back and make sure I've seen this one. KP's coming over. We'll watch that. She'll enjoy that. I hope she will.
Martian Manhunter celebrates his birthday with his colleagues in his civilian identity as John Jones. I thought it was John Johns.
It's John Johns.
Okay, but okay.
They may have been mistyped, but it's John Johns.
Okay. He receives a drink from a disguised Ma'afelaak in the form of a beautiful woman, which is laced with a poison that contains magnesium carbonate.
Uh-oh.
As magnesium is disruptive to Martian biology, the Manhunter struggles to maintain form while expelling the poison. Ma'alefaak then sets him on fire, with the magnesium continually fueling the flame. So he's basically just permanently on fire, struggling to maintain his form. Okay, so this is the
Have you ever seen the Venture Brothers?
No.
Oh my Lord, they do a riff on the Fantastic Four, and they keep the Human Torch guy in a coma all the time because whenever he's exposed to oxygen, he bursts into flames. And it's really painful.
Mm-hmm. Man.
So that's what I'm imagining.
Yeah,
here.
like he's basically just permanently on fire. Yeah, so that's the first of the team that's incapacitated. Probably going to die. Cheetah ambushes Wonder Woman at a dock and scratches her in the process, infecting her body with nanomachines that affect her brainstem. The nanomachines cause her to perceive everyone around her as Cheetah. Since the villainess knows that Wonder Woman will never quit a fight, the Amazon will continue to do so until she dies from a stress-induced heart attack or brain aneurysm. The delirious Amazon proceeds to attack both Cheetah and nearby innocent bystanders. So that's number 2.
Okay. Wow.
Mirror Master lures Flash into a trap, attaching a bomb to the speedster's wrist. If Flash does nothing, tries to remove it, or decreases in speed, the bomb will explode, killing everyone in a 3-mile radius.
I had to have seen this. This all sounds so familiar.
Yeah.
I've seen this.
So that's number 3. Lured to a mine, Green Lantern is targeted by Star Sapphire using Scarecrow's will-undermining fear gas. After he fails to save her hostages' lives, she exploits his fears to convince him that he does not deserve his mantle. The grief-stricken Jordan renounces his ring and resigns himself to his fate in the collapsing mine. That's number 4.
Okay.
On the Daily Planet's roof, a former employee named Henry Ackerman is aiming to commit suicide, which has attracted the attention of the media, including Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. After leaving a press conference as Clark Kent, Superman arrives on the scene and apparently succeeds in talking Ackerman down. However, Ackerman reveals himself as a disguised Metallo and shoots Superman with a kryptonite bullet, critically injuring him and causing him to fall to street level from the roof. And that was number 5.
Ouch. Okay.
The rest of this story is them getting out of this situation. So I'm not going to go too far into it, but ultimately that left a real heavy impression on me just based on the fact that Batman just had these plans sitting around, dude. Like,
I know it. He does. He does.
The way the episode ends,
I agree. I agree that Batman. I have repeatedly said he is the most dangerous human with reason.
Yeah.
I mean, he is the most dangerous human that DC that would, if he existed, we'd better praise on our side.
Yeah. Which I'm going to get to that at the end of the show. The Justice League has gotten Vandal Savage under control. He's found guilty of crimes against humanity and sentenced to life without parole by the World Court. Okay. They come back to the Justice League headquarters where
was he at the Hague?
Probably. I think that's the World Court. Yeah. So yeah. And which, if you have listened to Excruciating Detail, you got a little lesson on the Hague.
That's right.
I believe that was season 1, episode 3, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. But Superman holds a vote to ask whether Batman should be allowed to remain a League member because they found out that it was his plans that started all this. Okay. Right. And Batman actually steps down and says, I'm not going to be a part of this. Yep. So then Superman asks if Batman had a plan to stop himself if he were to go rogue. And Batman responds by saying the Justice League is his plan, meaning they're going to be the ones that have to come get him under control should he go rogue.
It's like all of them to take him down. I love it.
Superman then does a real bro moment and hands the kryptonite bullet back to Batman.
Yeah.
And teleports him out of the Watchtower. It's a really cool story. I wish they'd make like a really solid full feature live action movie out of it, but this is an animated movie and it is based on a comic book storyline. Ra's al Ghul was the one that facilitated all this, not Savage. So I'm wondering why they changed that in the movie, but either way, I thought it was pretty cool.
Maybe it may have had something to do with licensing rights.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. All right. So then I have the Batman, the Tim Burton one, Batman Returns.
Of course.
And of course the Christopher Nolan trilogy.
Absolutely.
I don't have any of the Zack Snyder movies in here. Okay. I'm not a big fan of. Okay, so
have you checked out the Robert Pattinson one yet?
I have not.
It's on HBO Max.
My son watched it. From what I've heard, I don't know that I'm gonna like it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the villains aren't the
strongest.
KP
has no desire to watch it. I have no desire to watch it.
I'm probably gonna watch it just because I like Batman, but they take a different approach where it's even earlier than Batman Begins. I want to say it's like. He's still gaining. I guess you could say it's kind of year one-esque. It's before year one.
Batman. Okay, because Batman Year One is basically Batman Begins.
Yeah,
That's what's so funny.
It's before that.
That movie is Frank Miller's Year One.
Yeah. I think it's before that. So like he's just trying to work through taking the mantle on. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll agree. I like the Burton Superman, and I like I said. I love the first two. I'll take all of the Batman trilogy from Nolan, but I don't care about the Batman Rises. That one
is your only issue is Bane's voice. That's it.
No. It's the whole. I don't know what it is about the whole police force. This whole militarization of it was just all so highly unbelievable to me. The Batman lost believability on that one to me. Not the Bane. It had nothing. Bane was the interesting part of the movie. It was all the we blew up, and it was just an island or what? Isn't that what they kind of did? Is blow out the bridges? You couldn't get in or out. Yeah. You're stuck in there, and it was like, and I don't care. And I just couldn't care anymore.
Setting that aside,
it had nothing to do with Bane.
So talking about
the Bane thing bothered me because she was actually pulling the strings and not
Talia
Bane.
Talia al Ghul.
And that made Bane look. Yes,
it made him look like he was not super intellect Bane in this. He was just a bruiser. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Just some fella.
Yeah. Okay. Couple of things. The Bane Batman fight was really
It's
good.
I do agree.
Orchestrated well, but also the lack of music in that scene was particularly impactful.
Because we talked about this.
Yes. And then secondary to that,
I've been talking about that series that had there was that one series I was watching, Black Summer, that a majority of it did not have music. And the first season in particular, that's what made it so intense. Was that you had no cues.
Yeah.
You had no cues. And I prefer that. It's like, I don't need to be told sometimes when, sometimes sometimes music is too much of a hint of what's going to happen.
Yeah. But then, okay, so the counterpoint to that, in the same movie, when Bruce Wayne makes his way out of that prison, dude,
sure.
you cannot tell me, you can't tell me that wasn't an amazing scene.
It is an amazing scene.
Yeah.
I agree.
So,
like I said, as a Christopher Nolan movie, it's a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
Because that guy I love Christopher Nolan. I think the only movie of his that made zero impact is because it's a remake, but it's what got him money was Insomnia.
Yeah.
And it's good, but it's not particularly.
I haven't seen Dunkirk yet.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that one either.
And I didn't really have a strong desire to see it. Now Oppenheimer, I'm real curious what he's going to do with that, because it has Cillian Murphy in it as Oppenheimer, and I don't know how it's going to go. Because I do tend to like his kind of mind-bendy time type stuff. And then also, so basically it's like his time trilogy, right? It's like Inception, and then he's got what's the other one? Tenet, and then Interstellar. Yeah, because they all deal with time.
I forget about Interstellar. Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
I need to rewatch all those. I need to rewatch Tenet because I remembered not liking it because I was struggling so hard to find out what was going on.
You need a diagram.
I'd like to rewatch it now, knowing that you have to watch now that we have, it's like you should have started off with subtitles right away. It took us 30 minutes to figure out to turn on the subtitles, kind of thing. Because we're like, wait a minute, we're certainly going to be able to understand this better later on. And it got worse. So so I need to go back and try it again.
Yeah.
I liked Pattinson in it. I mean, I really enjoyed him in it. I don't know what
I like Denzel's son in it.
Yeah. Is that who that is?
He was really good.
That. I love that.
The casting was impeccable on that. It was all great.
Okay. I'll watch it again now that I know that's his son. Heck yeah, dude. I love that dude.
All right. Okay. So we're derailing. We're derailing. Anytime Christopher Nolan comes up, it happens. Sorry. So no, it's okay.
Yes, it does.
All right. Let's move on to the Superman movies.
Okay. Yeah. For me, you'd have the Christopher Reeve Superman 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Those two are fantastic because we finally had a pretty believable looking Superman movie. This was made in the Star Wars era, so things were starting to look good. Superman Returns, I don't really remember much except the 50 cal flattening on his eye and Lex Luthor being Kevin Spacey. But it was entertaining because it's Bryan Singer. I mean, I remembered it being entertaining. Had good visuals and stuff too.
Yeah, Lex Luthor was creating new landmass with the kryptonite. Yeah. He put the crystal out in the ocean, and it started. He was going to have.
Yeah, that's right.
That was ultimately.
It was pretty. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I love the Zack Snyder trilogy. For me, I love the Man of Steel because it's scary having the Kryptonians around. That's a very Alan Moore nightmare vision. Having superhumans running around killing humans by the hundreds and casual fighting. I like Batman, Superman, but it has to be director's cut. This is what's funny is that I know people that hate that movie because they've never seen the director's cut. That when they have seen that director's cut, they like it because it explains a plot hole that apparently exists in the theatrical cut.
I only saw the director's cut.
And so I made the same way.
How did you feel Affleck played Batman in that?
I didn't mind it. I kind of enjoyed him as Batman.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, let's. I'm going down the Batman right. This is Superman conversation.
People hate. Well, this is a Batman Superman conversation. It's both because people hate this movie because of the Martha incident.
Oh yeah.
Where they're both fighting. Our mothers are named the same thing. We can quit fighting. It's not that at all. It's PTSD, people. It's like people. If you don't understand, having lived with someone who had PTSD in the past, things carry them back to those moments in time. So to me, I had no problem with the Martha thing because Batman is a walking ad for PTSD.
Yeah.
I mean, again, there is no Bruce. There's Batman because he lost his parents. So it's straight. I had no problem with the Martha stuff.
Yeah.
And then of course I love the Snyder cut of Justice League. I've never saw the
Hold
theatrical
on.
cut
Let's back up to Batman vs Superman real quick.
Okay,
The
sure.
casting of Lex Luthor was weak. I did not like
Yeah,
Jesse
that was
Eisenberg,
weak. That was
and
weak.
I
I
felt that
agree.
they really did Lex Luthor a
That could
disservice.
have
It's like Mark
they
Zuckerberg.
did a huge.
It's like who cares?
Yeah. They could have, man. We could have had so many great people. Ray Winstone would have been a
Oh
man,
man.
somebody intimidating, dude. I don't know why I went to Ray Winstone automatically, but it was like, dude, it's like this. It's kind of despite the fact that we have Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. That movie had some goodness to it. I mean, because we had Michael, I can't remember that guy's last name, that was played in Zod, that became
Yeah,
I mean,
he
I
was a
loved
good
all that
Zod.
great crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a great Zod. But the all that stuff was pretty good. But I love the Snyder cut of the Justice League. I never saw the theatrical cut
Same.
of that one, and I enjoyed the heck out of that
My
movie.
issue
I had
again,
faith it would happen, and
the generic alien villain trash.
Yeah, and I get that. He was pretty generic villain.
Yeah,
we never got a chance to see this because they wanted to Thanos us with Darkseid.
Yeah. But they didn't build up to it over 20 movies, or it wasn't 20. It was it was like 7, I think, by the time Avengers came out or something like that.
But even then, Loki was still a compelling villain.
Yes, yes.
I thought he was very compelling. I love Tom Hiddleston.
Hiddleston. Yeah.
Hiddleston. Yeah. Did you ever watch the Loki television series?
Yeah, I thought it was good.
It was great. Dude, I loved that. Man. Yeah. It was really good. I
didn't like
Marvel
that
stuff
villain
for the most
that
part.
they brought in. What was the villain at the end? What's his name? It's been a while since I watched it. The guy that
remember.
It's not Mordo. No, he's Doctor Strange. Whatever the guy is at the end that they go to his tower.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That guy. It was That was.
I didn't think that was a good casting, especially if he's supposed to be a major villain in the next phase or something. I don't see it. He's not charismatic enough to carry that.
Villain? In the cosmic stuff?
A major villain. I don't know if he's the major villain, but wow. I just felt it was a weak casting. I didn't feel it. Like he wasn't. Scary. He couldn't carry it.
He's fine for TV.
Yeah, that's like something you'd expect to see on the CW.
Right.
But
the rest of the show was not so CW. Did you ever finish? By the way, we're going to really derail here. Did you finish the Boba Fett? Did you watch Boba Fett?
No, I haven't started that yet.
Okay.
Actually, I'm working my way slowly through Stranger Things right now.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah,
Where are you?
Speaking of impactful scenes, episode 4, the Max scene.
Of which?
Do you remember
season?
Season 4.
Man, I have a lot of problem with 4.
I'm halfway through right now, but episode 4, the way that episode ends with that Max scene, talking about scenes with impactful music.
Yeah.
The choice of that song with that scene in particular was I was like, man, this is awesome. What is going on here? I was taken aback by how good that was.
I'll have to let you get further into it because I have problem with 4. I have major problem with 4.
Well, I mean, that's not taken away from the scene, though.
Well, what's the scene? What is it? The one where she's hovering in the air?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could care less. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I was so this season they did something to me that really it got me into an argument first off with KP.
Okay.
She had never watched Stranger Things until I made her watch it, and we watched it all in anticipation of 4, and we watched 4, and 4 is good. I'm not going to say I hate it, but so far I feel like, dude, I almost don't want to say this, but you'll feel it too. I think it's an ad for next season, man.
Okay.
It's all an ad for next season.
It's the build up to the finale.
Now let me ask you a question. Now I've asked this question of everyone else. This is the problem I had with 4. This is one of the many problems I had before. 1, 2, and 3 were able to pay beautiful homage to an era of movies I don't particularly like. And I enjoyed those because they were able to distill them Tarantino wise into an essence
Mm-hmm.
and to give you this essence. Number four has one flavor in particular that I don't see how you do not see the parallels. I'm not saying that you don't, but other people, because we know this right now. If I mention an interdimensional killer who haunts you in one realm and you wind up dead
Hmm.
in another, who are you thinking about?
Freddy Krueger. It had
Exactly.
Robert Englund in it.
I did. So I was so and I'm so sorry to be the one that I am not a fan of. I've never been a Nightmare on Elm Street fan. I was a fan. Like
Mm,
I said, I liked Italian '80s. I like gore extraordinaire. I mean, I like and the first Nightmare on Elm Street is okay, but do you realize that what we have done with the preceding ones is glorified a serial pedophile? He's a pedophile.
right, right,
Freddy Krueger's a pedophile. That's why he
right,
was
right.
killed to begin with. So why do we want to
Hmm.
think this guy's a great guy? As a
I don't
great
think anybody
superhero?
thinks he's a great guy.
Oh, they have a there's a love for him. Like he's like a too he's too comic bookish for me. I need in
Mm,
a comic is what it is,
okay.
and I have a problem with that in my horror, and I have a problem with Stranger Things. It's one thing to homage something; it's another thing to whole cloth transpose something. But like I said, when it was all I even overlooking these things, when it was all said and done, it was still good. But it was. I felt like it was a deliberate, like we are running I think it's a little bit longer season. It may have 2 episodes longer than normal, and it has some great characters, some people, some surprise performances by people who you will be, very upset about when people get hurt. I mean, but overall, I felt like it was an ad for next season. It's like with the villain, it's a villain issue. I have a villain issue
Okay.
with Stranger Things 4. That's there you
Okay.
go.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. I have a villain
It
issue.
did take us. I do feel it took a step back villain wise from the smoke monster,
Yeah.
because I feel that the smoke monster is way more powerful than Vecna.
Yeah.
I mean, Vecna can kind of project into the other realm, but
And what they've done with Vecna's look, I'm sorry, that's a direct ripoff of Swamp Thing. You do a side by
okay.
side image of Swamp Thing and Vecna, and you'll see that there is. I mean, it's a straight up ripoff of the Swamp Thing look. So you're stealing one of my beloved comic book characters, and I'm having a problem.
Dang, Billy.
I'm going to give. I mean, like I said, yeah, I was sad. Now, and I was not the only one. I talked to some other kids at my work, and I do mean kids. These are like 20 somethings that had never watched the show and did what I did, watched it all, kind of all at
Mm-hmm.
once, and were like, the first 3 seasons were fantastic. Number 4 felt so different. It's fine to be
Mm.
different, but it's different that's not good because it was I felt predictable.
Okay.
That was I guess I should, that is a problem you run into with a show that has been as magnificent as Stranger Things has been, though.
That's what I was gonna say. Is they set the bar so high
They
that
do.
it's
They
like
do.
it's almost like the same problem Game of Thrones had. Is like the early seasons were really good, but they set the bar so high. It's like, how
Right.
could you do anything but fail? Which is
Yeah.
why Steven Erikson and his
Ugh,
books. It's like how every book gets better and better.
I
Like the
don't know.
story
I
keeps
don't know.
getting more epic. So, yeah, that's the Malazan Book of the Fallen for those that
Yes.
are unaware of that. We'll get more into that at some point.
Yes.
Okay, back to the topic at hand. So
Yes.
you've covered all the
No,
Superman movies then,
yes, I've
right?
covered all the Superman
Okay.
movies, and this. I think I don't really have much else to say on Superman, Batman. I mean, I don't know if you swung me or if I swung you.
I was gonna say we've come to the end, and to wrap it up, I honestly, I mean, I think we're pretty entrenched in our positions.
Yes, we are.
Like the thing is, neither one of us hates one
No,
or
we
the
don't hate the
other.
other.
It's
No,
more of a preference of the hero. I think it comes down to the message they send
I
and
think
what
so.
resonates with us indivially. You
I'm an
know,
optimist.
Uh,
That's my thing. Is I'm an optimist.
and I'm the more brooding type. So,
Yes.
so
Explain
that
why.
kind of explains it all.
See, this is why, but this is why I love Daredevil, because Daredevil is kind of broody, but he's also kind of an optimist too. You know,
Mm,
he's a man. He's a man of faith. He has a little bit of it all going for him. So that's why I'm a huge
hmm.
Daredevil guy.
Okay.
But Daredevil
All
does have
right
some
then.
powers. Also. But good episode. Good talk.
Yeah, after all this buildup, I think, overall it was a very good conversation.
I was afraid I wasn't going to have enough to say We've been going almost 2 hours.
Oh, you had plenty to say. You had plenty to say.
That's KP's problem. She said she wanted a man that talked. She's like, oh my Lord, the Lord has a sense of humor. She goes, with you, man. She goes, you just talk all the time, baby. I'm like, well, you got what you asked for, didn't you?
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, good job.
Yep,
thank you.
Great job.
Hopefully the audience enjoyed it.
I hope y'all did too.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at horsefrogproductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.